let's talk about hearing. Well, hearing is probably a whitetail's most important sense, because no matter where it is, it can hear things throughout a 360-degree circle all around. Now, when I first started deer hunting, my dad told me, if you take maybe 4, 5, 6 steps, go real careful, and then stop, any deer that's close by will think you're just another deer. You sound like a deer that's feeding. I grew up with that myth, and it's a myth. It's a terrible myth. And there are all kinds of hunters today who will argue till death about that's true. They won't be able to identify you. They'll think you're a deer, a feeding deer. I've mentioned that. There are a lot of other sounds that human ears can hear that go along with the sounds whitetails make when they're feeding, like chewing. You know, even if they're chewing grass, I watch them real close by, chewing grass or leaves, and get a mouthful, and they're going crunch, 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 crunch. This is especially true when they're eating browse, woody stems of woody plants, which begins about the beginning of the second week in November, where I hunt deer up in northern Minnesota. They're eating browse then. They got a bunch of browse, and might be a twig that long, they're chewing on it, and finally the ends all disappear in there. And while they're chewing on it to get so they can swallow it, they're going crunch, 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 crunch. Now, if you're not making that kind of a sound while you're sneaking and changing direction and stopping often, that's going to seem quite suspicious to a deer. Then it'll sound more like a wolf or a bear sneaking up, or a human. Humans do that too. They're going to be really suspicious about that. Well, at that point, they're going to stop chewing and stop eating, and they're going to listen and watch over there where the sound is. Oh, something this tall moved over there. That's a human. I'm getting out of here. Now, that's not true of fawns and yearlings. They have, by the time a deer is 1.5 years old, which that's what a yearling is in the wood, he still doesn't know about such things. Up to this point, he's been depending on his mother to decide, that's a human there, we better get out of here. So he doesn't know, those deer don't know that yet, yearlings don't. Now, they know when they get to be 2-year-olds the following spring, that's time when they have to go searching for their own first home ranges. And they might have to go 5, 6 miles before they find one, a home range that's not already occupied by another deer, an older buck, for example. Say, this is my home range, you get out of here, you get chased out of there by this other buck, that kind of thing going on. Well, so yearlings, 2.5-year-olds still have this kind of thing to learn. Some of them will act really stupid, like a yearling buck, when they hear things. And they just are so curious sometimes. Yearling bucks, that's their downfall. They're curious about sounds and motions they can't identify. And so they'll come closer and closer and trying to figure it out and stamp the ground, see what it does when it stamps the ground, that kind of thing. And every experienced hunter has seen that from whitetails. So, well, anyway, don't believe for 1 minute that you sound like a feeding deer when you're sneaking, still hunting, on foot, walk around during the day. In fact, you won't see 90% of the deer that already have decided you're not a feeding deer, because they'll sneak away or stay frozen in a cover while you're moving by, and you won't see them, won't hear them. So, quit thinking you can sneak up on deer by sounding like a feeding deer. You can fool deer ears. My sons and I do it every day we hunt. And it's not by sneaking, it's by walking on trails that we've cleaned of dead branches, cleared of dead branches, within 100 yards, maybe 100 feet of our stand sites. We can walk softly on there. And instead of sneaking, we walk steadily, putting our feet down softly as we go. That's very unhuman-like. Humans have big feet, and they put bigger boots on with soles. You can't feel what's on the ground, and you're stepping on twigs. You're trying to watch ahead while you're walking, and you step on twigs off and that kind of thing. That identifies you. Any metallic sound that you emit, like say, you got some loose bullets in your pocket and you're kind of jingling a little bit, or you bump your rifle barrel on a tree trunk. That's a clunk, but it's a kind of a metallic clunk. But metallic sounds like the click of a safety being moved back, or a bolt being opened and closed. Those kind of metallic sounds. You can buy stools, folding stools in the store, but nobody's selling wooden ones. I prefer wooden ones because I don't want no metal. You know, when you're squeezing between trees on a deer trail or something, and you got a stool on your back, if it's metal, you're going to be bumping those metal tubings that the legs are made out of on trees all the time. And that's a sure giveaway as far as sounds are concerned. And on a quiet morning, those kind of sounds, deer can hear that up to a quarter mile away, or even further if you got a really big, loud clunk. And you know, and all kinds of other sounds that the human voice, that's the only creature, the humans are the only creature that makes sounds like what I'm making right now, you know, and human sneezing, you know, a human sneeze is a lot like the snort of a deer that's alarmed. You hear that sneeze or coughing. Nothing else in the woods makes sounds like that but humans. There's all kinds of different, you know, opening a pop can or this bag. You got these nice little, you got peanuts and stuff trail mix. You open the bag and those crackle when you open it, and rip it open, or you zip up and flap on the side of your warm pants like mine. I have zippers on the sides of my legs on my hunting clothes, or on a coat, the sound of a zipper, or little snaps. You know, you close up that thing and it goes pop, pop. There's hardly a whitetail in America that doesn't recognize sounds like those as being caused by a human. So think about that. There's all kinds of things. You know, if you got really coarse clothing on your that you wear, your outer clothing, that sounds like sandpaper when it rubs against a tree trunk or a tree branch. You push through a tree branch, and if it sounds like sandpaper being rubbed on something, that's not good. You want soft clothing on the outside, so it doesn't sound like sandpaper. Whether you're climbing a tree or just walking through the woods, you don't want that kind of thing happening. Well, you can fool once you get to your tree stand, of course, or your ground level stand site, and you sit down. Now you're silent, boy. Now you're a buck hunter. You're not making any noises to tip off a buck in the vicinity that you're there. Especially if you've never hunted that spot before. You know, I've been talking a lot about that in my video presentations here on YouTube about the fact that stand sites that have never been used before, first time used stand sites with certain characteristics around, like very fresh tracks and or droppings of a big buck right over there on that trail, or over there by that freshly renewed ground scrape, or over there where whitetail's been eating all kinds of acorns. There's broken shells and tracks and droppings all over. That's right over there. When you've got those kind of things around you, and you're sitting downwind or crosswind of those, now you're sitting at a stand site where the probability that the deer that made these fresh signs is still in the vicinity. Or let's say it's midday and all the deer are resting now. But later today, when they're thinking about feeding again, the odds are that the deer that made those fresh signs, tracks and droppings and antler rub and ground scrape, whatever, is going to revisit this spot in the evening. You know, maybe as early as 3 o'clock already. Or, let's say it's in the evening and you find those kinds of things. Oh, geez, look at these fresh tracks here. And holy man, they're 4 inches long. That's a big buck. And if I can get out of here without alarming that buck, a good chance in the morning that he's going to come back to this same vicinity. After that, he probably won't, because breeding is going on right now, for example. Oh, he's close to a doe. It's an estrus. That's why he's in this area. He's with her. Tomorrow, she might not be an estrus. They're only an estrus 24 to 26 hours, and he could be a mile away tomorrow. You got to take advantage of that kind of thing right now. So now we're talking about, you know, knowing and recognizing where to sit. But, so now you're sitting in a place like this, and you're not moving around a lot. You're not making noises because you're moving around. You're not brushing your rough fabric on the back of your coat behind the tree behind you, whether you're sitting at ground level or up in a tree. I always sit with my back to a tree. So now you're silent, and you're not very easy to spot. And at this spot, that buck that made those signs has no reason to believe he has to worry about any human being in this vicinity, because there never was one here before. He didn't identify any hunter here, otherwise he'd be staying away from. So that buck is vulnerable. That buck that made those tracks is vulnerable right now, if you got those kind of things working for you. Now, the only thing left is scent. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.